1 minute standby, 1 minute.
For those folks on the phone, please press *6 to mute and unmute your line. Thank you.
So we have questions lined up on the phone. Oh, good. Oh, you're getting up to be a pro. When do you want to start? Good afternoon. Dr. Shah, director of the Maine CDC, reported this morning that there are 28 additional confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Maine. Several of those individuals are small children. 43 invaluable healthcare workers have tested positive. And as of this morning, 2 more people with the disease have died, bringing the total number of deaths in our state to 5. We mourn the loss of each one of these individuals, and we pray for the more than 300 who have been now diagnosed with this virus across the state of Maine. Dozens in our ICUs right now. And of course, the hundreds of thousands across the country and across the globe. Here at home, more action is necessary. So in the last 16 days, I have proclaimed a state of civil emergency. I have prohibited gatherings of more than 10 people. We have closed dine-in service at restaurants and bars. We have prohibited public-facing interactions for non-essential businesses. We have urged schools to end in-classroom instruction, which they have done. We have closed a number of state parks, very popular places, to prevent people from congregating there. And among other things, we've implored Maine people to stay at least 6 feet apart from one another. These are no ordinary times. 16 days seems like an eternity for most of us. No ordinary times, but these are times when extraordinary actions are required. So today, I am taking the most aggressive action yet. Effective this Thursday morning, April 2nd, until April 30th, I am ordering all Maine people to stay at home. You may leave only if you work in an essential business or to conduct or participate in some essential activity, such as getting groceries, going to the pharmacy, seeking medical care, caring for a family member outside your home, or going for a walk, a run, a hike, to fish or walk a pet. Abbreviated exercise. But while you're out, you still must maintain 6 feet distance between yourself and other people other than immediate family or children, household members. I am ordering people as well not to use public transportation unless for an essential reason or for a job that cannot be done from home. For those who travel in their own vehicles, I am ordering that they limit passengers to persons within their immediate household unless they're transporting someone for medical or public health reasons. I'm also ordering those essential stores that remain open to limit the number of customers in their stores at any one time. Excuse me. To implement curbside pickup and delivery options as much as possible, and to enforce U.S. CDC recommended physical distancing requirements for customers and employees in and around their facilities. I'm also ordering the continued closure of schools for classroom and other in-person instruction until at least May 1st. Most schools have already done this of their own volition and in line with my previous recommendation. Traveling to and from an educational institution for purposes of receiving food or meals or instructional materials for distance learning is allowed. Well, I cannot simply close the state's border or pull up the Maine-New Hampshire bridge, as a few people have suggested. I will insist that persons entering our state or returning to Maine from somewhere else, that they self-quarantine for 14 days. We will be issuing a further order in this regard with more details in the next day or so. For those people who come to Maine, however, my message is clear. You should not think you can escape the virus by coming here. And while you are here, you are obviously subject to the laws, protocols, and orders of the state of Maine. Our health facilities may soon be overcrowded and overwhelmed. If you get sick, or if you are sick, treatment may be scarce or even unavailable to you. And to the people of Maine, we are in the midst of the greatest public health crisis, or one of the greatest that this world has seen in more than a century. The virus will continue to sicken people across our state. Our cases will only grow, and more people will die. I say this just to be direct, to be as honest as I can with you, because saving lives will depend on all of us. If anyone today believes that this virus won't affect them or their family, or if anyone is still saying to themselves, "Can't happen to me," I implore you, listen to Dr. Shah, listen to Dr. Fauci, listen to those experts, listen to the facts and the science and the medical personnel on whom we rely. Don't be indifferent to these facts. The late Elie Wiesel, the Nobel Peace Prize winner and survivor of the Holocaust, told us, quote, "The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. The opposite of art is not ugliness. It's indifference. The opposite of faith is not heresy. It's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death. It's indifference." Before us today is a test of our shared humanity. Indifference to that test will result in more people becoming infected with the virus, including some of you listening to me today. It will result in our hospitals being overwhelmed, and it certainly will result in more people dying. I implore you, look to yourself, look to your family, your friends, your loved ones, your neighbors on the front lines, the first responders and the healthcare workers who can't stay home. They're fighting this virus. Look to the children who live around the corner from you, the farmer who grows your food, the grocer and the pharmacist who sell you goods, the teachers who are missing those kids, the fisherman, the sailor, the truck driver, the janitor, the waitress at your favorite diner. These are the people you're protecting by staying home. This is who you're saving. I believe more than anything in you, in the people of Maine. I believe more than anything that we will conquer this virus together. I have said it before and I'm saying it again. Things are going to get worse before they get better. But by doing our part now, they will get better. Today we may feel fear, anxiety, that unsettledness that Dr. Shah referred to earlier today. But every day I feel hope too. We know hope because of the Maine people who are stepping up in droves to help others. We know hope because of the 68 people who have recovered. If we pull together, we can and will defeat this virus. If we all do our part, you and your family can stay safe. And the sooner we take these measures that I'm ordering today, the sooner we can flatten that curve, avoid the surge, and be safe once again as a state. We stay apart now so that sooner rather than later we will all be together at work, at school, and at play once again. So do your part, stay apart. If you love your neighbor, if you love your family, if you love this state as I do, please stay healthy, stay home. God bless you and yours and keep you all safe, and God bless the state of Maine. And I believe we have a few questions on the phone.
Great. Thank you very much, Governor. We do have a couple of questions from folks on the phone. We'll start with Caitlin Andrews from the BDN. Caitlin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Governor. I guess I'll start with what seems like the most obvious question is, what specifically spurred you to take this action rather than a week or 2 weeks ago? Was it a series of conditions or a specific, change in the way things were in the state, like the number of deaths?
We're dealing with this virus, this invisible threat, day to day, hour to hour. My administration, my commissioners, we consult every day, several times a day. We consult with our esteemed CDC director, Dr. Shah, every day. I consult with other governors. Just yesterday, I was on the phone with the other governors and the president and the vice president. It was the sixth communal call that we've had in less than 2 weeks. And so every day we're conversing and coordinating and seeing what's right for our individual states. Today seemed like the right thing to do, the right time, the right place to issue this order that addresses a number of very serious concerns that have grown over the last few hours and the last few days.
Great. Thanks, Caitlin. We'll come back. We're going to cycle through, and then we'll do any rounds of follow-ups. Next up is Kevin Miller from the Press Herald. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Thanks for taking this call. So I just wanted to talk a little bit more. This is obviously a statewide mandate. We've had voluntary or local orders in the past. What was your sense? Were people not doing enough? Were they not social distancing enough? Were you still hearing reports of people congregating, or is this really meant to send a message that, hey, we need to get serious and we need to make sure this happens?
I've been favorably impressed by the compliance of the people of Maine from everything I hear on the ground, from what I hear from different towns and cities, public officials, law enforcement. And yet it seems necessary to turn this into an order to just make sure that people are complying with best practices, best public health practices. I have not been out scouting around to see who might be at the playground, who might be playing a pickup game of basketball. I'm sure there have been a few. We know there were 3,000 people at Popham Beach a week ago in one afternoon. I wish I could have been there too, but it's not what good public health practices require. And so we're issuing the order, not because of noncompliance, but because we need to sort of codify these rules, make them explicit and unambiguous.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. We're going to go next to Clay Gordon. Clay, go ahead.
Hi, Clay.
Hey, Governor. A couple questions I'm going to just try to put into a three-part. The first one is any of this enforceable? Second is, has there been language discussed to assist the homeless population and the networks of organizations that support them? And in regards to the Portland City Council amendments passed last night for their extension, it was a suspension of evictions. Do you plan on implementing anything the same statewide?
That's three different questions there, Clay. You cheated.
Yeah, they are. You gotta get that.
Well, first on the home, let me back up and say there are probably four basic things that we are still dealing with hour to hour that are not in this order. One is dealing with the homeless population. And Dr. Shaw and Commissioner Lambrou and city officials from various municipalities who are most directly dealing with the homeless populations are trying to manage that, trying to coordinate alternative responses for those who don't have a place to stay at night or during the day. That's a challenge. They are coordinating that. I don't have an easy answer for you right now. Second thing that we're trying to coordinate and we're thinking ahead is the elections in June. What can be done? Town officials are concerned that people will gather at the polling places and this emergency may not be over with by June 9th. That's a valid concern. There are people who work the polls who are of a vulnerable population. So we're looking at that. That's not in this order. Thirdly, we're looking at state employees and how we can best protect them. And fourthly, the order that I mentioned in my statement about people coming from out of state or returning from out of state, how we can best enforce that kind of an edict. So the homeless issue, I don't have an answer for you right now. We are dealing with it. We know that it is a priority. Your second question, another question was about evictions, I believe. Correct? I think that's correct. Anyway, I have spoken to banks, financial institutions, and a number of landlords, making sure that they are ready to accommodate people's needs, that for people who cannot pay the rent or can't pay all of the rent because of the response to this virus, every one of them has assured me that they're willing to work with tenants who are facing non-payment. Tomorrow is April 1st. It's often enough the day the rent is due. I'm convinced that there is flexibility there. I'm also convinced that they're informed that there has been flexibility by financial institutions, mortgage holders who are dealing with landlords and property owners. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all problem or that it calls for a one-size-fits-all solution. But I'm happy to deal with that, at least informally at this time. And I understand what Portland has done. They're entitled to do that. What was the third part of your three-part question?
The third part was, is any of these stay-at-home mandate enforceable?
Yes, they are. Title 37B gives the administration and all law enforcement across the state and licensing agencies full authority to enforce all the provisions of this order and every other order that we've issued.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Clay.
Great. We'll turn next to Kate Koff from the Ellsworth American.
Hi, Kate.
Thank you, Governor. I'm wondering if there is any talk of delivering personal protective equipment to frontline non-medical personnel, such as grocery store cashiers and public transportation workers, given that we've seen several cashiers and a gas station attendant fall ill.
One of the recommendations in this, one of the provisions in this order does ask that stores with a customer base, that they limit the customer base at any one time, and that they put up protective shields. I'm not sure, I'm not a public health expert. For what I've heard and read, masks may not be the best way to protect against the spread of the virus in that kind of public location. But no, we have not asked to, or been asked to distribute, and we're distributing PPE initially to healthcare professionals. We need to protect them and their families and first responders and those, of course, in the hospitals who need them right now.
And Kate, this is Nirav Shah. I'll also add that, as the governor noted, the plexiglass recommendation for large retail establishments between the customer service person and the employee. Although masks can be effective in different settings, plexiglass is, as it suggests, a thick piece of glass. That would be a very effective barrier in this situation. And I concur with the governor, obviously, in her executive order, that is a real barrier that will be helpful. We'll turn next to David Singer from WGME.
Hi, David. David Singer.
Okay, we'll come back to David. Going next to Steve Missler.
Oh, thank you. Governor, how much of this order was your decision to implement this order was driven by the fact that it seems as though it might double as not only as telling residents to stay home, but as potentially as a deterrent for out-of-state visitors who think they might be able to flee the virus by coming here?
I think the order speaks for itself in that regard. We address many things in this order, and to a large extent, a lot of it is addressing stores where people might congregate, wherever they may be from. It is basically protecting people against personal contact, avoiding personal contact, respecting physical distances. It is the single, as you know from watching and hearing the news, it is the single thing that will prevent the spread of this virus, that will flatten the curve, and that will prevent the surge that we all want to avoid, inevitably. So it's preventing physical contact. In terms of travel, what we're saying is people shouldn't travel, period, whether they're from Maine or from another state.
We'll do a quick round of follow-up. Steve, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess my question, Governor, was specific to the idea that it would be a deterrent for people who think they might be able to get here. How much of that was a consideration in your decision? I may not have stated the question very clearly.
We are discouraging people coming here from other states, and we're discouraging people returning here from other states. There may well be a significant population in Florida, snowbirds who want to come back. We're asking them to stay put because it's the safest thing for them to do, for themselves, and for the people they might come into contact with here.
Great. Caitlin, back over to you for any follow-ups.
Yes, thank you. Governor, if this order wasn't spurred by people not observing social distancing recommendations, was there something else? You mentioned that you've been in contact a lot with other state governors. Was there maybe like a state with a similar situation to Maine that you were kind of watching and thought that maybe it would be good to kind of follow what they've been doing? Can you expand on that?
This order is unlike any order from any other state, honestly. I've reviewed orders of a variety of sorts, and I've talked with other governors, people whom I respect a great deal, like Governor Hogan in Maryland, Governor Scott in Vermont, Governor Beshear in Kentucky, and Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania, have taken very thoughtful measures in their own states. Their states, they're each different from Maine. They have different scenarios, even with respect to this virus. Governor Hogan yesterday followed District of Columbia and the Governor of Virginia in issuing sort of coordinated orders, because those orders altogether affect the metropolitan population of more than 15 million people, a population that routinely interacts between those three communities. So that's a different kind of order than what I'm ordering. Different from Vermont's order, which has had one in particular flare-up in one particular congregate living situation, but and it's different than Massachusetts's order. This order is geared to Maine, the needs of Maine, the state of Maine, the needs of Maine people. I got to say, there's nothing normal about any of this. You know, we crafted this order, my office and I, trying to think about how we tailor this to the businesses that live in Maine, the people who live in Maine, the various communities where we don't have a city of over 100,000 people. We have a dispersed population. Nevertheless, spring has come. People want to get outside. People want to do things. They want to go to the beach. They want to go for hikes and such. And we're just reinforcing what should happen and what should not and cannot happen in order to prevent this virus from spreading in our communities.
Kevin Miller, do you have any follow-ups?
Yeah, thanks. Following up on the question about enforcement, two questions. Can you just elaborate any more on what that Title 37B, what it would allow you or police to do, and then also on the out-of-state residents? I know different strategies in different states. Some states are allowing troopers to pull over folks with out-of-state plates to check on what they're doing. Is that one of the things you're envisioning?
I'm not ordering such a move. I'm not ordering that we live in a police state as such. The order is enforceable under the provisions of Title 37B, which are pretty plenary. It can be enforced by law enforcement as necessary. Violations are Class E crimes, subject to up to 6 months in prison and jail and a $1,000 fine. There are also licensing provisions and other provisions of law that might apply to entities subject to this order.
Clay Gordon, do you have any follow-ups?
Somebody's
To the person hammering a nail, your line is open. Clay, any follow-ups?
I do not.
Okay, very good. Kate Koff from Ellsworth American, any follow-ups?
Yes, thank you. Can you talk a little bit about how this affects non-essential lodging in the state? I'm sure you're aware that Bar Harbor and I think Portland as well have now enacted bans on non-essential lodging, Airbnb, that sort of thing. Does this affect that at all?
Actually, I believe it does not. What we say in this order is that this order, because it is state issued, preempts, I'll read you the language, section Roman numeral 5. The order preempts any local ordinance or emergency order of the same subject matter that is less restrictive than or otherwise inconsistent with this order. I wouldn't read those ordinances or emergency orders from those towns to be inconsistent with this order.
And David Singer, any follow-ups? David, any follow-ups on your end? Okay, I think that's it, Governor.
That's it. Thank you very much for your questions, and I hope I've answered what, perhaps not to your satisfaction. These are no ordinary times, as I said. Nothing feels really right about doing this. Nothing feels normal about doing this. Who's on the phone? I don't think any of the governors I've spoken with or dealt with have ever expected to have to take these kinds of measures. When they ran for governor, when they became governor, no one anticipated this kind of measure, these kinds of measures. I beg the people of Maine to be patient, to be tolerant, to act with kindness, compassion, and humanity towards your neighbors, your family, your friends, and your community members across the state as we engage in this unusual manner to put to bed this terrible, dangerous, deadly virus. Thank you.